All right, welcome to the 4.2 eighth grade notes. Slope of a line, the slope, which we'll call m, and it's going to be used a lot, m. Slope of a line is the value of the ratio, the change in the rise to the change in x, the run, between any 2 points, x1, y1, x2, and y2. The slope of a line is a measure of the steepness of the line. So as we look at this, and why is that doing that? Sorry. Get that off there. Okay, as we this stuff, we're going to want in our notes. Please write this down. This is something that you're going to come back, you're going to get help, and you're going to be like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to say, well, what's slope? What is that? And I'm going to say, well, what's m? And we're going to say, well, you should know that that's rise over run. It's going to take you a while to memorize that. So write it in your notes. So that when you're doing a problem, you're like, what's slope again? Oh yeah, rise over run. Well, what does that mean? Well, what's the rise? The rise is right here in red. So I would write this down. Change in y divided by change in x. So these things, so when I say rise over run, I'm going to ask you, what does that mean? And you're going to say, well, that's the change in the y over the change in the x. And you're going to be like, well, what does that mean? Well, look at that. It means this. y2 minus y1. You're like, well, what's y2 and 1? Well, look back up here. Here's y2, here's y1. So whatever the second coordinate is for y minus the first coordinate for y is our change in y. And then our blue, our change in x is right here. x2 minus x1. And then it's dividing both of those. So here we go. So let's look at this example here. Let me just change this real quick, bring it down. Grab a different color. All right, so here's our problem. If we're going to do the rise over run of this, well, I guess we don't have a problem here, but we have what we see. We have here's our rise, which makes sense, up and down, right? How tall it is. Here's our run. And then here's our slope. Once we calculate that, we put there's our plot for x2 minus x1. There's our plot for y2 minus y1. And then you use a ruler and you connect those, and that's our slope. That's our slope of a line. So you're gonna be like, well, what does it all mean? Well, let's do another example. But if you haven't copied all this down, this is such a great thing to have in your notes. You're gonna want it in your notes. You're gonna need it in your notes. So have this in your notes, and then so pause this, and then I'm going to the next one, and then unpause and be ready to go with me. All right, so here we go. Since we have that written in your notes, you're going to look at that as you try to solve this. So here we are. Now this is in real life, and I'll use red again. I'll just use red over blue. But we have our rise, so we'll stick with our rise is right here, right? Our rise is how tall something is, right? That's our rise. So we'll go ahead and do our rise, and we'll remember.
you have this line falls here, as it says, from left to right. So it's going starting with the left and it's going down all the way through here. It's going left to right. So the slope is going to be a negative slope. The other slope was positive, is going up. So this is a negative slope. Important to have that in your notes. I am going to show you a graph here in a little bit that you're going to copy down. But use the coordinates x1, comma y1 equals -1, 1, and x2, y2 equals 1, 2 to find the slope. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we know our y2 minus y1, write this down with me, over x2 minus x1. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So our y2 is -2. So -2, see how that -2? And then our y1 is 1. Okay. So -2 minus 1, so change, that would equal 3. Okay, now let's take a look at our x. We have x2. Where's x2? Which is, let's see, 1, positive 1. Yep. So positive 1 minus, it's over here, -1. Okay, this is the line. We're doing slope of the line. We're doing this line. So we got to look at the points that are on the line. Points that are on the line. Okay, once we get that, this is our slope we're finding. So anyway, so 1 minus 1 we know is 2. So 3 over 2. -3 over 2, sorry. -3 over 2. Because yeah, -2 and a -1, I put 3 here. That was obviously -3. So -3 over 2, it's a negative slope. So over 2, down 3. Over 2, down 3. See how I know that's another spot on the line? Over 2, down 3. Watch. If the graph continued, it would keep going like this. Over 2, down 3. And you'd be able, this whole thing would connect. Because what do we know about a line from other grades? We know that a line doesn't end, right? It just goes on and on forever. So that's -3 over 2. Okay, so now, as you finish copying that, you might need to pause it. But if you haven't, if you're all done copying that, all right, I'm going to have you do the try it for number 1 and number 2. So I want you to do both try it's. And you don't need to graph them. You can just kind of count with your fingers from the screen. If you want to graph it, you can. That's fine. I'm going to give you your answer. I'm just going to give you the answer for number 1 so you have it. So number 1 is, the slope is -1/5, -1 over 5. So -1 over 5 is number 1, and number 2 is 1/3. So have those, write those down, pause this so you know what the answers are, but now see how you get that. Make sure you take your x, your y's, and your y2 minus y1 over your x2 minus x1, and make sure you get that. Okay, now let's take a look at, so pause that while you do that. Don't just watch this. Watching notes is good, but also not good. So now we're looking at finding, this is a totally different example, finding slopes of horizontal and vertical angles. So if we're trying to find horizontal and vertical angles, we talked about in the last video, horizontal is like left and right, vertical is like jumping, so it's up and down. So again, y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So in this one, you can see that we have our y2, which is 5 minus 5. So y2 is the second point on the line. So 5 minus 5. So you see that here, 5 minus 5. Get this out of the way. I hate that. That always pops up. 5 minus 5, which is going to equal 0, right? But then we have 6 minus a -1, which is 5. So you're going to see, or 7, sorry. No, that should be Should be a positive 7. Sorry, change 6 plus 1 is 7. Yep. So 0 over 7 is 0. So when you see that, the slope is 0. We have no slope. Why? Because it's a straight line. There's no slope is when, like what we saw in these. It's the slope. Slope is any of these things like this. Boom, slopes. You can see that, right? Okay. When there's no slope, it's just a line, a straight line going through like the x-axis so this is going through the y-axis. This one over here is going through the x, so we'll have no slope. So then B, let's look at B. Another good example. We have y2 minus y1, so here's y2. You have the 6 minus 2 is 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. So anytime you have a 0 like that, 0 over 4, that's not no slope, but that is an undefined. So the slope is undefined. Anytime it's over 0, it's undefined. Very important things to have in your notes, because when you get 0, you're going to say, oh, it's just the slope is 0. Not always. Slope is 0 if the numerator is 0. The slope is undefined if the denominator is 0. So please write that in your notes. Okay, so now we're going to do number 3. I'll have you just do number 3 as a try it, not number 4. So do number 3. So go ahead and graph that. I want you to, you don't have to graph it, I'm sorry. I need you to use the y2 minus y1. So, our y2 is -2, our y1 is -2. So -2 minus a -2, you'd have -4, right? So start solving that. You should get an answer of 0. Okay, and now I want you to copy. I want you to put these in your notes. These are going to be very effective to have these in your notes. 4 little sketches. So I want you to sketch positive slope, negative slope, what a slope of 0 looks like, and what undefined slope is, and they all tell you. So positive slope, look all the way to the left here. The line rises from left to right. So you're going to see pictures like this. We're going to say, hey, is that positive? And you're going to know, you're going to look to your notes, that's positive slope. If it falls this way, it's negative slope. So you're sketching these graphs, you're writing this in there, you're not just writing what it looks like. Slope of 0 is going to look like this. A line is horizontal. What if the line is vertical? It's not 0, it is undefined. So please pause the video and get those in your notes. This should be everything you need to do the 4.2 A sheet and also the 4.2 video, not video, but the one on Delta Math that's also uploaded. All right, that's all I got. Have a blessing. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Peace.